Okay, so today we're going to continue to work on these two large-scale pieces of terrain for Warhammer the Old World, or AOS, or any fantasy game. It could be used for 40K. We worked on this one the last time. We made a small mortuary on top of a hill. On this one, we're going to do a little bit of work on it today, just to kind of show off the other hill. And then I'm going to show you how to treat this next, in the next step, so that we get that kind of durability that you're always looking for with your terrain, because I want this to go well for you, and I want you to be able to keep your terrain for a long time. Anyway, we are working on a full set of graveyard terrain. I have 4 of these pieces, so 2 small ones like this and 2 larger ones like this. You can check out my other videos where I made these and painted them up. And today we're going to be, like I said, working on these 2 bigger scale things. So I'm going to use these rocks and I'm going to glue them around in a couple of strategic places. These are just rocks that I picked up from a dollar store or a pound store close to me. They're polished a little bit, not much, but they're perfect for doing our hobby stuff. Also, I'm going to use something we haven't used before on the channel, but I've used many times in my hobby. Instead of using this pink and blue board of different thicknesses, this is actually ceiling tile. There's a couple of problems with ceiling tile. Is one, you don't want to get the really old stuff. The really old stuff is dangerous because of what they put in it. It does contain some chemicals that might be bad, and it is very fibrous. I don't know, I'm gonna hold it pretty close. It's pretty fibrous in there. But I've used a lot because it's simple to come by. There's a lot of places that have broken pieces of ceiling tile, and you can quickly just cut it out with, you know, a normal utility knife. And I'm going to actually use this to build a wall on this hill. Now, one of the reasons why I like it is it already has this kind of hold texture, you know, like it looks like a wall that's been like beat up or shot up, that kind of thing. I use it a lot in my bolt action or flames of war, just because it looks like a wall that got shot up. But I think it's perfect for this situation because I'm just going to place it here, and I'm going to hold this up. I'm going to place it here on this, so it gives a defendable space to this hilltop that we're building. And then, like I said, I'm going to glue that into place, and then I'm going to also do some of these stones. I think on this one, I'm just going to do the wall and the stones, and on this one, I'm just going to do the mortuary with a few stones. I was considering using this. If you haven't seen my my video where I talk about how to do a monument, this is actually a really cool piece for doing a monument. And this was just a spindle for thread that I got from a local person that does a lot of sewing. And what I did is I placed a miniature on top of it, and you could easily, you know, put it on a hilltop like this, put the miniature on top, surround it with a few things, and then you're going to have like a monument to a figure. But check out that video so you can check, you know, see how I did that, how I built it, and how I painted it. Anyway, so the other thing we're going to do today is once I get these things glued into place, we're going to go back into this one with spackle. I just use this heavy duty spackle. It is got the pink, and I'll get into this in a minute, but this pink allows you to know when it's dry, and that's really important. And so we'll be using this and a spackle knife to do the next step. So thanks for watching. I really appreciate it. If you find videos like this helpful to your hobby and what you're doing with building terrain, and you really want to get epic terrain on your tables, please like, share, and you know, share these videos with friends that are also in the hobby. But like and subscribe to the channel. It really helps us out with the studio, and helps us grow as a channel. And I really appreciate everybody that's already a supporter of the channel. Thank you so much. Let's dig in. All right, so I'm just going to use this all-purpose. We've talked about this product before. It's a adhesive, a construction glue, and I like it because I have this nozzle, and I feel like I have a lot of control over where the glue goes. And like I said, I just want to put it here. And I'm going to smooth out along the edges just so, you know, I don't have any gaps between it and the foam. And I need to make sure it's pretty straight. That looks better. And I'm just gonna fill in a few more gaps here. Now, one way you can fill in the gaps is with this construction glue. Another way is with the spackle itself, or by placing other things right around it. Your terrain, pieces like these rocks, or even flocking. Especially if it's kind of bunchy flocking, that's really a good way to do it. Anyway, I'm just gonna smooth this up a little bit now. That looks better. And I am gonna just put some of this around the edge here. Sometimes you wanna fill in this entire edge with this glue or some form of adhesive or the spackle itself. We'll get into that. And that's just so you don't have a gap like that right there. You want to fill that, and that way the terrain just looks more finished when you're completed the project. Anyway, so let's get into the rocks. All right, so I'm going to work back into this piece here. I just want to put a few rocks up against the building itself. I'm not going to put a lot of them. And maybe I'm going to put a couple down here, and then maybe like 1 or 2 over here. All right, so what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to work these rocks into that glue, and then make sure that the glue isn't like really poking out around it, because you don't want it to look odd later. Like there's magma behind it that dried. But what I think this does for a piece is we're just providing it with a little bit of something else in the piece. These natural rocks are perfect for kind of making it look pretty like reality, and make your terrain pretty epic by having some rocks in there. I'm going to put one more small rock right on the top of that, like it's a pile, and maybe a smaller one. Oh, here we go, right there in that crevice. Just makes it look more realistic. All right, so now I've got that one kind of complete. Stack of rocks, a few rocks here, a couple there. This piece we'll get back to in just a moment. Now this one here, because what I did with the adhesive in the wall, what I'm thinking about doing is actually putting a few rocks in front of it and a few rocks at each end that kind of help protect the flanks of this wall. And like I said, it gives a little bit of structure to this piece to have something like that in there. Then I'm going to go back on this side, same thing, and I might put at least 1 or 2 in front and a couple behind, and then a little bit of glue here that will work down. All right, now you can kind of see what I did with the adhesive there. So let me go back in with these rocks now. Just want to kind of build a little bit of structure. I'm just working it into that adhesive. All right. See how I did there? And all I'm going to do on this side is just make sure, let me put a small one here. There we go. And one right there. All right. Need just a couple more rocks. Sorry that was so loud. I'm sure that was brutally loud. All right, finish that little bit of the project. Now you can kind of see that I just placed a few rocks around it. That hill will look excellent on the tabletop once we get done. All right, that one's got some weight to it now too with the rocks. That's great. Push these rocks to the side. I'm gonna go back to this piece now, and we're gonna do the spackling. Now, the most important thing with the spackle is a lot of times you're not using the spackle every day. You might have to add some water in order to make this pliable. If you do, you do. Don't soak it with a lot of water. You actually want to be pretty sparse with it. You know, and it's easier to mix more in than it is to try to take water out of it or let it dry in between. This does get messy. You're going to get it on your hands and stuff while you're working. And it's just like icing a cake or anything else. You kind of just want to make sure that you're covering the blue foam as much as possible, or the pink foam, with this spackling so that it gives your foam a lot of durability. You don't want to cover up details if you can help it. You know, I don't want to cover up rocks or anything like that, but I do want to get right around them and make sure. And this is what I was talking about with the spackling. Is I don't have to like completely fill this gap, but I do want to get, you know, all of that blue covered and then fill in the gap just a little bit like that. Hope you can see that okay. Anyway, let me keep working here. And it's not gonna 100% be covered, but do the best you can, because we are gonna do one more step on top of this that will really protect it durability wise for the long term. The other reason you're wanting to cover up this pink or blue foam is that if you are gonna use a spray primer in this situation, spray primer will eat the foam product pretty easily, meaning it's acidic to it and it'll bubble and make little holes. Now, granted, if you're looking to make it look like it got burnt with acid or lava or is some kind of alien terrain and you want that effect, spray painting on top of unprotected foam is a great way to get that effect. But in most cases, you're trying to protect a foam from anything like that. Now, I don't personally use spray primer for many of my hobby projects, but I do use it for some. I used it to do this yellow just to kind of make a baseline for the terrain piece on the bottom, meaning I didn't want that to have durability issues later. So kind of soaking it with a yellow that I don't use all the time was a good way to, you know, protect the wood long term just by coating it like that. One of the other tricks is if you're doing terrain stuff, you probably don't need the same quality primer for terrain as you do for miniatures. So you can just get normal rattle cans if you're doing terrain. Unless you're trying to catch little detail, regular primer or spray primer, rattle can primer will work on anything. Stuff that you would use like to paint a chair or anything like that. But when you're talking about miniatures, I highly recommend that you use one of the, hobby-based companies. I use GW, Army Painter, lots of different ones. I do recommend that for miniatures and not the other stuff, because I've just seen poor quality on miniatures if you don't use an actual, spray primer that's made for getting small detail. You don't want to cover it up, and a lot of times those other ones will cover it up. And you'll be losing detail on your miniatures, and then you'll be not happy. All right. Get this back side a little bit. And I want to make this pretty smooth, but I don't have to make this perfect smooth, because I am going to end up having to sand this with a sanding block or sandpaper. I typically use a sanding block to smooth this up before I do the next step and before I prime. The next step, we're going to be putting sand and PVA on it, and you'll see that in the next video, where I'll show you kind of, that step is good for making sure the durability is in place. All right, and then I am gonna do a really thin coat on the building itself, and I'm looking for a little tool. Give me a second. It's a really important tool, popsicle stick. It's a little easier sometimes with something that's a smooth surface to just use a handy dandy popsicle stick, because it goes a lot faster. Sometimes on my miniatures, using the right tool helps it go just a lot faster if you're using the right one. And I know that popsicle sticks are good. The spackle knife gets me a lot of material on there so I can start working with it, and the popsicle stick will get me smoothed up and ready for the next step. Like I said, you don't have to do perfect on this, but you want it to be pretty good, because coating this pink board, like I said, not only gives it a little bit of texture, so it looks a little bit more natural, it also is going to end up protecting that foam later. All right, we're almost done here. All right, so now this is the messy part, is I'm gonna use my finger just to kind of smooth up a couple areas. Do you have to use your finger? No. It won't hurt you though. Spackle's not dangerous material-wise, but any of these rough edges that I'm having trouble getting to stick to, I can just do these little swirls and cover that up with a thin coat, which is useful for later. And I can get into gaps and things like that with my finger sometimes that I can't get in with the popsicle stick or the spackle knife. And I can definitely smooth up some of the excess that's on here because I don't want a lot of excess. And you can see I'm putting a little bit on this yellow board. It'll just make it look like earth a little bit better before it's all over. But I don't want any heavy buildup around this edge because that is not good for the miniature, you know, for the terrain long term. It'll make it, there'll be places that like crack out and stuff like that, and you don't want those cracks and stuff to show. It'll have a few cracks when we go back in, but nothing big. But if you leave a big pile of the spackle somewhere, it will crack later, and you'll see it, you know, a year from now or something like that. You don't want to do that, so you just avoid anything that's too thick. This is probably just millimeters thick, and that is perfect for what we want to do. Now the reason why I use the pink is not only do I know that I've covered up everything that I need to cover up, when it's dry it'll be white, and therefore I will know, you know, when I'm gonna do the next step, because I need this to completely dry before I do the next step. And when it comes to drying time for spackle, usually here in the studio, I can leave it for overnight and it'll be okay. But of course, you know, it depends on the humidity in the building you're in or your home. And it also depends on the humidity outside. You know, is it raining? Is it not raining? Is it pretty arid? The other thing you can do to kind of speed up the drying time, and I'm just cleaning this edge so that I don't have a big rough piece on the edge. The couple of things you can do to speed up dry time on this, of course, is to use a fan. And then the other thing would be to put it in direct sunlight. But direct sunlight will crack it more. It'll have more crazing. And if you're looking for cracks, putting it in hot, direct sun will definitely give you cracks on this spackle. So you have to be careful with it unless you're looking for that effect. And then, you know, do put it right in the direct sun. All right, I think I'm finished with that. If I play with it too much, it'll fall off. So this piece here will be done when we come back, but we went from something like this, you know, to this. And just kind of show, you know, what we did. We put some rocks and we put the spackle product to kind of start smoothing it up. And then when we come back in the next video, what we're going to be doing is sanding this so that it's nice and smooth without taking too much material off. And then the next step would be to coat the entire surface with PVA glue and sand. So there's a lot still in store for this project, and I want to take you there step by step so that you can make this same kind of epic terrain for your tables. And I really hope you learned something today, figured a few things out, and can't wait to do the next one. Talk to you then.